Why does this clerk drive a bigger and better car than his boss? Why does his boss drive a smaller economy model? And why does the boss's boss drive a Stingray with 4 on the floor? Why do buyers buy what they buy? I'm Dr. Kenneth McFarland. I've spent a number of years in the field of sales psychology trying to understand the basic behavioral processes of the buyer. It might be more accurate to call it buyer psychology, because from the psychologist's point of view, you don't sell him a car. Strictly speaking, you don't even help him buy a car. Because to him, it isn't a car he's buying. His real destination is not a physical place. It's one or more goals that he can reach through the purchase of a given automobile. Those that are important to a given buyer we call priority goals. Once you understand these basic psychological motivations, you're in a better position to help each buyer satisfy his priority goals by tailoring your sales presentation so that you offer the proper incentives to persuade him to buy. So let's look at these buying goals, including both his motivations for buying and for not buying. Then, to help you further tailor your approach to each buyer, we'll dig into such areas as personalities, attitudes, and moods. So let's answer that question. Why does he buy a car? The drive to show off is the first and foremost of these goals. Sometimes this is called self-expression. It takes many forms. He may want to get the best car on the road, the most revolutionary style and engineering, the tops in performance, the latest model. Believe it or not, the desire for economy usually represents the show-off goal. Sometimes the desire to save money is so strong that some buyers will spend $1.25 to save $1. Why? Because they want to brag about their low purchase price, their gas economy, their low maintenance cost. Fortunately, you can give him a lot to brag about. Even his desire for beauty stems from this drive. Most people want to experience and express beauty, to possess it. And above all, the buyer wants to be appreciated for his taste in cars, or even envied by others. Which brings us to his drive to feel appreciated for being something in this world. The psychological term for this is projection. Mr. Buyer wants people to see the real him behind the wheel, which is an image not of what he is, but what he wants us to think he is. The image may be a captain of industry, a man of youthful athletic prowess, a dynamic leader, or at least an individual with his head above the crowd. Of course, he's liable to be one thing at the office or on the job and quite another thing at home, and still another when he's buying a car. But for the most part, his manner, dress, and possessions reflect the image he wants you to see. You may approach him differently at home than in the dealership, but you're still selling to both the needs he has and those he thinks he has. Sometimes, when he really has arrived, he may decide he has nothing to prove, which he immediately proves by going to the opposite extreme, driving something less than his position calls for. Then there's his drive to be accepted by others, to go along with the code, to be one of the gang. This goal becomes stronger as his car becomes older. When the neighbor across the street shows up with a new car, or the in-laws, or his business friends, the buyer begins to feel he needs a new car, too. Some psychologists call this imitation, but it isn't quite the same kind of imitation as the little woman might indulge in these days, because the buyer doesn't want to get exactly the same model. He doesn't want to keep up with the Joneses. He wants to keep a little ahead of them, or at least be different. But not too different, because he wants to stay in with them, to keep their acceptance. A drive to feel secure is something else influencing the buyer. He wants to feel he can count on his car, getting him and his family where they're headed and getting them there safely. In addition to reliability and safety, another side of that security coin is comfort, convenience, and luxury. Many psychologists contend that we all seek satisfaction of this urge from the moment we leave the cradle. And while the owner is satisfying these needs, guilt feelings concerning his wife's lack of transportation may plague him. Couple this with her reasons for wanting a car, and a need for a second car is born. Of course, he often ends up driving the second economy car while she drives the luxury-loaded model. Avoidance of unpleasant situations such as these help to make him feel secure. He isn't always trying to reach pleasant goals. Sometimes he's trying to avoid unpleasant ones. So, it's not just a car he's buying. It's satisfaction for one or more of his basic buying motives and avoidance of unpleasant situations. With all of this and more at work for you, your job would be easy, except for one little thing. These positive motivations are held in check by a lot of negative motivations, such as cultivated sales resistance, the desire to put it off, to shop around, to hang on to the money, concern over what the wife will think, and so on. Oddly enough, these reasons for not buying can work for you rather than against you. If you understand and overcome them while appealing to the buyer's positive motivations, he feels a stronger incentive to buy. Actually, everything the buyer does, says, and thinks is a result of positive and negative motivations. He doesn't just run around doing things, he's prompted to do them. He reacts to various stimuli. Different people act differently, which brings us to personalities. Personality is the combination of all the factors that make each of us act and feel a little different from the next guy. There are about as many lists of personality types as there are psychologists compiling them. Ignoring such clinical classifications, an introvert, ambivert, an extrovert, we come up with a number of buyer personalities. You'll no doubt recognize each one as having an opposite type at the other end of the scale. Talkative and silent, trusting and suspicious, aggressive and milquetoast, warm-natured and cold-natured, deciders and deliberators, impulse buyers and procrastinators, and a variety of shades in between. Many salesmen put people into mental cubby holes. Too often, these bins are negative. If you hastily classify a prospect as a shopper or a grouch, you probably won't approach him with the conviction that he's going to buy. If you find yourself putting too many prospects in the tough nuts to crack class, it might pay to analyze your own selling personality. Prospects can't all be tough. Maybe you're the one who's putting up the barriers. Drawing on your own past experience with similar types can be helpful, but you must recognize the person in personality. He wants to be treated as an individual, not a stereotype. So approach him person to person. To do that effectively, let's also consider his attitude. He has different attitudes toward different situations, and he has one toward buying an automobile. It's nothing more than a psychological posture he assumes, consciously or subconsciously, stemming from his past buying experiences and beliefs. Now, it could be a good attitude, in which case there's nothing between the two of you that a little old-fashioned selling won't fix. On the other hand, his attitude can be sort of an invisible shield. It can take the form of apparent disinterest, aloofness, hostility, suspicion, most anything. In these cases, if you start your pitch now, you won't get through. He's not ready to play ball. Sometimes his attitude is compounded by a mood. He may be nervous, down in the dumps, or bright and sunny. His mood may stem from his attitude, his basic personality, or it may reflect what he had for breakfast. Recognize his attitude and mood. If they're not conducive to the sale, take steps to create the buying atmosphere that you want. Your friendliness and interest in him can dispel his mood. His attitude is something else again. Lead with the attitude you want him to have. If he's aloof, hard to get through to, display a warm nature. If he's hostile, be easygoing, calm. Attitudes are contagious. If you don't set the pace, you're apt to pick up his attitude. Why let the buyer dictate the buying atmosphere? You're calling the step, so lead. And while you're at it, show sincere interest in him and his needs, both real and psychological. Get on common ground with him. Mutual confidence and respect follow. So pull on the buyer's boots. Understand his goals. He comes to you with various reasons for buying and for not buying, plus an individual personality, a preconceived attitude, and a mood of the moment. All of these are important in establishing the buying atmosphere and in determining the way you sell him. Learn to spot them and to use them. Sell him the car that will help him reach his goals. When he reaches his goals, you will reach yours.